British Columbia Institute of Technology acknowledges that our campuses are located on the unceded traditional territories of the Coast Salish nations of Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh.
Good afternoon, this is Keone Mo with your 3 p.m. news update. The TransLink Expo Line elevator replacement project plans to replace 21 elevators across 15 stations on the Expo Line. Jeannie Lin reports on the impacts on commuters with accessibility needs.
Tomorrow, November 4th, the Expo Line elevator at Waterfront will officially close for construction. Currently, the elevators at Stadium Chinatown, Nanaimo, and 22 2nd Street are all closed. Commuters needing to get on or off the Expo Line at these stations are asked to take an additional bus to a nearby station. Janice Laurel is one of those impacted by this replacement project. As the city heads into the winter months, she has concerns about travel safety.
There's a lot of hills in downtown Vancouver. And so to have 2 SkyTrain stations both closed, the elevators closed, is going to add a lot more pressure on buses. The buses can only take 2 wheelchair users at a time, and it could be a very long wait. That includes people with walkers or strollers or, and what if somebody tries to take a stroller down the stairs by themselves and falls?
TransLink has confirmed that there will be no additional bus services around these stations during this time. Jeannie Lin, BCIT News.
Politicians from BC and Ottawa met in Vancouver for a forestry summit on how to prop up the industry in the face of American fees and tariffs topping 50%. David Eby told a news conference after the meeting that it has been difficult to hear that the main topics discussed with the United States have been energy, aluminum, and steel.
Softwood is to British Columbia as auto parts and steel are to Quebec and Ontario. And just hearing again and again that those were the topics being discussed federally with the Americans was challenging. I think that as of today, I feel much more confident. The federal government understands the severity of the crisis facing the sector, the impact of the industry across the province and across the country, and the need to be more involved.
An RCMP officer in Chilliwack is in stable condition after a head-on crash in her marked vehicle. The accident occurred when the officer was traveling northbound when a Lincoln traveling southbound crossed into her lane, says a police statement. Police say witnesses suggest speed and erratic driving could have played a part, but alcohol has been ruled out. A 29-year-old man from Chilliwack has been treated for minor injuries sustained in the crash. No charges have been laid. The overdose death toll continues to rise in BC. The BC Coroner Service says 158 people died due to overdose in September. They say most of the victims were male, taking 78% of overdose deaths. It says more youth under 18 have died so far this year compared to last, with 20 deaths. Fentanyl was the most common drug found after testing. 84% were found to have the drug in their system. United Way BC is giving $700,000 in grants to former youth in government care who wish to attend post-secondary. The organization says they will be handing out Youth Futures Education Fund grants sooner than usual. This year is also the largest amount they have ever released. The money is used by students to cover necessities like housing, food, educational tools, and transportation. Last year, they supported 663 students with $600,000. Montreal's new mayor-elect says there are a number of issues plaguing the city, and she wants to come to provincial and federal partners with solutions. Soraya Martinez-Ferrada outlined on day one of her mandate that homelessness and a transit strike hitting Montreal are her big priorities right now. Martinez-Ferrada says she wants to bring a constructive relationship to relations with federal and provincial authorities.
We have a housing crisis that's important. We have a homeless crisis that is important that addresses the issue of Montreal being more attractive to investment. So at the end of the day, if Montreal is not going well, Quebec's not going well. And I think the government of Quebec is very open to that conversation. And I want to come to Quebec with solutions.
As Prime Minister Mark Carney prepares to visit the United Arab Emirates, human rights advocates are calling on his government to do more to stop the flow of weapons from the UAE to Sudan's civil war. The UAE insists it isn't arming the Rapid Support Forces militia, but numerous human rights groups say they believe planes meant to carry humanitarian aid from the Gulf country to Sudan are regularly delivering weapons instead. World Vision Canada Policy Director Martin Fisher says Canada should be more upfront about its concerns with the United Arab Emirates, even if Ottawa is seeking investment from the country for artificial intelligence.
As Canada looks to strengthen and diversify its strategic and trade partnerships, our values and the strength of those values, both as articulated by the Prime Minister and his cabinet, are not just mere rhetoric. And they cannot, in the light of the need for Canada to diversify, they cannot take a back seat.
Prime Minister Mark Carney's first budget will be unveiled in Ottawa tomorrow. The government has promoted it as building big in Canada while shifting away from economic reliance on U.S. trade. Canadian press reporter Craig Lord says this budget is going in a different direction this time around.
Carney has built this budget as a plan to spend less but invest more. Now, what does that mean? He's going to divide the presentation of this budget between a capital stream, money that goes toward building homes, infrastructure, major projects, stuff like that, and an operating stream, the rest of the money that goes towards government services, salaries, transfers to Canadians and provinces.
The head of the Bank of Canada says interest rates are almost as low as they can go in the current economic climate. He says he has to balance inflation rates and boosting a tariff-stricken economy. Governor Tiff Macklem says tariffs are a slower-moving pressure than other crises, but they are likely to affect prices. The risk of inflation means Canada could use a boost to economy by lower interest rates, but they can only go so low. The Bank of Canada lowered its benchmark interest rate to 2.25% last week. Macklem says the rate is at the lower end of the bank's neutral range, allowing it to provide stimulus while also keeping inflation in check. He avoided making any economic recommendations ahead of the announcement of the federal budget on Tuesday. American President Donald Trump's administration says they will partially fund the SNAP food aid program in November. This comes after 2 federal judges ruled that the payments were required to continue. This means that food aid is back on for 1 in 8 Americans. But still, the program has been delayed for millions that rely on it, and the number eligible will be going down. The U.S. Department of Agriculture said it would not be able to continue funding due to the government shutdown. And AP's Lisa Dwyer reports on a new deal between OpenAI and Amazon.
OpenAI and Amazon have now signed a $38 billion deal to run OpenAI's systems on Amazon's cloud services. The deal was announced just days after OpenAI changed its partnership with Microsoft. Last week, California and Delaware regulators allowed OpenAI to move forward with a new business structure to raise capital and make a profit. OpenAI will access hundreds of thousands of NVIDIA AI chips through Amazon's web services. OpenAI will start using AWS immediately, with plans to expand further by 2027. I'm Lisa Dwyer.
Now let's get into some sports. Quinn Hughes is back on the ice tonight after an injury. He and the Canucks will face off against the Nashville Predators. And ahead of their upcoming inaugural season, PWHL Vancouver are announcing a new program designed to support developing female hockey players. Reporter Elijah Ford has more on the latest developments in the growth of female hockey.
PWHL Vancouver will host a group of girls between grades 8 and 9 for once-a-month mentorship sessions with the team. The meetings will be focused around developing core principles for aspiring athletes to build upon, like confidence and resilience. PWHL Vancouver forward Jen Gardner says the consistent growth of female hockey is helping create a pathway for a new generation of players across British Columbia.
Even when I was growing up, it just felt like playing boys hockey was a better option, better caliber, more competitive. And so to have now a lot more female hockey is just going to be huge for the entire growth of the province, I think.
Registration for the program is open through the PWHL's website and Instagram page. The form will be closed on November 7th. Elijah Ford, BCIT News.
The Los Angeles Dodgers' dramatic 5-4 victory over the Toronto Blue Jays on Saturday night in one of the wildest games 7 series in World Series history is ranking as the most watched fall classic game since 2017. ABC's Melissa Adon has more.
When you look at the number of viewers just for Game 7 alone, MLB says that they broke records from the 2017 World Series of nearly 26 million viewers. So talk about baseball. The love of baseball was also an international thing because we had, of course, the U.S. viewers, the Canadian viewers supporting the Blue Jays, who really played phenomenally.
Hockey Canada has named the 25 players going up against the United States in the first 2 rivalry series games. 3 goalies, 8 defenders, and 14 forwards will square off against the Americans on November 6th in Cleveland, Ohio, and November 8th in Buffalo, New York. The roster includes 20 players who earned silver at this year's World Championship. Forwards Hannah Miller, Caitlin Kramer, defender Katie Tabin, and goaltender Cale Osborne will make their national team debuts for Canada. The rivalry series will conclude in Edmonton with games on December 10th and December 13th. The Anaheim Ducks goaltender Lucas Dostal, Ottawa Senators right wing Drake Batherson, and San Jose Sharks center Philip Kurashev have been named the NHL's 3 stars of the week. Dostal won all 3 of his starts and posted a 1.63 goals against average, .948 save percentage, and league high of 91 as he saves Anaheim into first place in the Pacific Division. And today's weather is looking like a high of 10 degrees with a low of 3 and partly cloudy. That was your 3 p.m. news. Keone Mo for BCIT News.
Tell people that I studied journalism, they immediately say, oh, you want to be a reporter. But I think, in my case personally, I really want to go into magazines, PR, social media, and I think here at school we learn a lot of skills that allow you to go into that world because you learn how to write for social media, social content, for websites,